ultimately again is only over an object that is inherently valuable and movable. So the Gemara says, Yatsu karka shemataltlin. This excludes, therefore, from the shua of the shomer chinam karka, which is not movable. Yatsu avodim shukshulu karkos. It excludes avodim that are compared to karka. Yatsu shtaros she'afapi shemataltlin ein gufan mammon. It comes to exclude shtaros v'arabosah because even though they're movable, a shtar is not inherently valuable. Hegdish reyuksiv. And Rabosai, it excludes hegdish. Why? Because the pasuk by Shomer Chinam says, "I give something over to my fellow," which indicates that the Shevuah is governed by a relationship between two people, not with a relationship to hegdish. Good. No say schar eno mishalim. We'll say if a person is a paid custodian, Shomer Sachar, he would not go ahead and now remember under normal circumstances, Shomer Sachar pays for Gneva Vaveda. Something is stolen or lost. A paid custodian has to repay the owner of the object. Yet the Mishnah teaches me that for any of the aforementioned objects, avodim, shtaros, karkaos, hakdeshos, so no say schar does not have to go ahead and no say schar doesn't have to pay. So where do we know this from? The Tan Rabbanon, ki yitin ish arei ehu klal. So we'll say it's the same klal or pratu klal. Ki yitin ish arei ehu klal. A person will go in and give to his fellow. This is talking about by a shomer sachar, right, to watch. So we'll say that's a klal. That's a general statement. That's a general statement. Chamor oshar oseh. Ultimately, again, a donkey, an ox, or a sheep, prat. That's a specific statement. V'chol behema lishmar, and any animal to watch. Chazar v'kalo. Klalur pratu klal. So klalur pratu klal. So we'll say it's the same klalur pratu klal as we saw before. The prat ultimately tells about the klal. What's just like the prat is davar hamataltal v'gufa mammon, something that is movable and inherently valuable. So to a shomer sachar only swears for something that is movable and inherently valuable. Hektish is excluded because re'ehu ksiv. Fine. Rabbi Meir Omer Yishtram Shem Kekarka Ben Ukar. So also remember again, the Mishnah recorded an interesting machlokas. What was the machlokas? We'll say, what happens if I go ahead and I give Ruvain over 10 laden vines, 10 vines with grapes on them. I come back and I claim them, and what happens? Ruvain says, you only gave me 5. Rabbi Meir says, that's a Shevuos Modeh B'Miktzas. Or I should say, that's Modeh B'Miktzas, and there's a Shevuah. Chachamim say, no, it's not Modeh B'Miktzas. They both say, now, B'Pashtus, what's happening over here is what? What's happening over here is, well, not B'Pashtus, what the Mishnah says is, the Chachamim say, Kol HaMechuber L'Karka, Harehu Kikarka. Anything which is attached to the ground is like ground. Therefore, according to the Chachamim, admitting 5 of the 10 vines is not subject to the Shua Modeh B'Miktzas. Why, Rabbi say? Because as we just exhaustively proven, so Shua Modeh B'Miktzas does not apply to Karka. So therefore, again, that's the Machlokes. Mechlel, Rabbi Meir Savar Kal Mechuber L'Karka Enoki Karka. So are you telling me then that Rabbi Meir holds that something that is attached to the ground is not reckoned like the ground? Meaning, Rabbi Meir seems to have that what's at play over here is that the Chachamim hold anything that's attached to the ground is like Karka, and Rabbi Meir holds that no, if it's attached to the ground, that doesn't automatically make it like Karka. Is that true? If that's the case, ademiflegi betuunos liflegi besrukos. We'll say if that's the case, then why do you have to set up the case as laden vines? In other words, the machlokes would be just about vines, because the idea over here seems to be the machlokes is something attached to the ground considered like karka or not? Rabbi Meir says no. Chachamim say yes. As such, again, why the need to set up the machlokes with laden vines? Make it even barren vines or empty vines. Rabbi Yosef, no. What's the case? Hacha ba'anavim omdos li basar kimifli. The machlokes over here is with vines that have grapes, but the grapes are ready to be harvested, meaning they no longer need the vine. They're ready to be picked. So it says the Gemara. So what's the machlokes over here? So the Rabbi Meir savar kibitzuras dami. Rabbi Meir holds that of anavim ha'omdos li basar kibatzar dami. That once the grapes are fit to be harvested, it's as if what? It's as if they are already detached. It's as if they are already detached. And therefore, again, even though they still sit on the vine, they don't have the din of karka, they have the din of metaltalin, and therefore, again, it's a case of modeh b'miktzas. V'rabbanan savri, lo kibitzuras damim. The Rabbanan say, no, as long as it's attached, Rabbi will say, whether it needs the vine or not is irrelevant. If it's attached to the ground, then what? Then ultimately, again, it has a din of karka. It has a din of karka. So we'll say, ultimately, again, we paskin, or I should say, the Rambam paskins, like Rabbi Meir. Namely, that anavim habitzuros kibatzar dami. That once the grapes are fit, are fully ripened, and no longer need the vine, even though they're still attached to the vine, we view them ultimately, again, as halachically detached. And therefore, again, partial admission of a claim in this type of situation would trigger a Shevuos Modim Mikzas. Amar Abaye, excuse me, Ein Nishban Ela Adavar Shemida Mishkal. So then, Rabbi, remember again, the Mishnah said that a Shevuos Modim Mikzas is only triggered when we're dealing with items that could either be measured, that could be weighed, or that could be counted. So it says the Gemara, Amra Abaye. So we'll say what that. Remember again, the case in the Mishnah, for example, was if I say to Ruvain, I went ahead and I gave you a grain, a storehouse filled with grain, and Ruvain said, look, whatever you gave me is the amount that's there. So we'll say ultimately again, there's no shvu in that case. Why? Because Lamais, again, we're dealing with amorphous or ambiguous amounts. When the claim is not clearly defined in terms of weight, measure, or amount, then there's no shvu mikzas. On the flip side, if I say, Ruvain, I gave you a storehouse with grain that went up until the support beam, and Ruvain says, no, you only gave me a storehouse with with grain that goes up to the window, then I will say that's a measurable amount. So because it's a measurable amount, it triggers the Shevuos Modim Mikzas. Abaye, lo shana eladam le base by stam. So we'll say Abaye has an interesting distinction here. Abaye says that the only time we say that such an amorphous claim doesn't trigger a Shevuos Modim Mikzas is if I say to Ruvain, I gave you a bayis stam. I gave you a house filled with stuff. Aval amar le bayis ze mole, then yediyat hanasir. I will say if I specify the house and I say this house, I identify the house, then by definition Abaye says that even according to the Abaye says then that would be a defined claim. Rashi says yediyat hanasir. It's in the third short line in Rashi. Techeivan da amar le bayis ze mole. But since he identifies the home and he says the home was full, and now I see the home is not full, then by definition that triggers a Shevuos Modim Mikzas. To which the Gemara says, Amalei Rava, if that's the case, Ihachi adatani seifa ze omer ad haziz ze omer ad achalon chayiv. If that's the case, then this last case I will say in the Mishnah, which says, I say to Ruvain, I gave you a storehouse filled with grain, and I gave you a storehouse filled with grain up until the support beam. And Ruvain says, no, it wasn't until the support beam, but rather it wasn't until the window. We'll say first wide line, mem gimel amud aleph, liflog v'lisnei b'didei. Why don't you go ahead and simply make a distinction within the previous case itself? B'medran murim, when is this true? B'bayis malei, ava bayis ze malei chayiv. As Rabbi say, if that's the case, you don't have to introduce a new case. Just say, when do we say that it's not a Shevuos Modim Mikzas? Only when he says bayis, the house. That's when it's too amorphous, too ambiguous, no Shevuos Modim Mikzas. But if he says bayis ze malei, then ultimately again, and Ruvain says, no, whatever you see is what you gave me, then that can trigger Shvuah. Rather, Rabbi say Rava has a different interpretation, and this is the interpretation we accept. In reality, the only time Shevuos Modim Mikzas is triggered is when the claim, Rabbi say, is measurable. The claim is measurable either through weight, through amount, or through count. The mida mishkal ubeminyan. So I'll say so either measurement, weight, or amount, number. So the Gemara says v'yoda lo b'davar shebemida uv'sheba mishkal v'sheba minyan. So I'll say so. Therefore, again, what Rava comes along and says no is that in order for a claim to trigger a Shevuos Modim Mikzas, so again, the claim has to be a measurable claim, either mida mishkal uminyan, which means again measure, weight, or number. There has to be some type of metric to measure the actual claim, and the partial admission must also be for a certain amount as measurable through mida mishkal uminyan. So the Gemara says Tanya Kaval say the Rava. We have a rice that supports Rava. Kor tvua libi adecha. We'll say if I say to Ruvain, you have a core. A core is a measurement of wheat. Ruvain, you have a core of my wheat in your hand. Vala omer in l'chabiyadi. And Ruvain says, I've got nothing of yours, so pater. So we'll say again, that's a pater, that's a kofar bakol case, right? He admits nothing ultimately again, and therefore, he is pater. On the flip side, listen to this, not on the flip side, it's along the same lines. Menorah gedolu yeshli bi'adecha. Ruvain, you have a large menorah of mine. So what does Ruvain say? Ein lecha biyadi ela menorah kitana. I don't have a large menorah, I have a small menorah. We'll say, what's the halacha? Pater. Now, the assumption over here is the reason I'm pater is why. Look at Rashi. El menorah kitana pater. De'ein ha'hoda mimin ha'kfira umashetano lahodlo. So we'll say this is a little bit different. See, what this is saying over here is, and we learned this a few days ago, that the hodah, the admission, has to mirror some element of the claim. So the Gemara is suggesting over here is as follows: if I tell Reuven, you owe me a large menorah, and he says, no, I owe you a small menorah. So we'll say, so even though you'll say, well, it's the same thing, menorahs and menorahs. No, it's not. Because I will say a large menorah and a small menorah are two distinct, different entities. Therefore, as opposed to, I say, Reuven, you owe me $1,000, and Reuven says, no, I owe you $500. I will say, there, the admission reflects some element of the claim. If I claim a large menorah, he admits a small menorah, I will say, then again, what he's admitting is not what I'm claiming. Therefore, he's pater. Azura gidola yeshli biyadecha. Similarly, again, I say, Reuven, I gave you a large belt, right? I deposited with you a large belt to watch. I only have a small belt of yours. So we'll say again, pater. In these cases, ultimately, again, he will be pater. Why? Because again, so I'll say, I just want to point out over here, the Gemara is bringing in two different concepts. Concept number one, which is the concept we started with, which was that both the claim and the admission has to be something measurable, something objectively measurable, either b'midah, b'mishkal, u'b'minyan, either through number, through weight, or through some other type of metrics, through some other type of measure. But if the claim and the admission is somewhat ambiguous and amorphous, then by definition it cannot trigger a mode of mikzas. That's principle number one. Principle number two, which is that the hodah, the admission, must mirror some element of the claim. Remember, it's only Shimon Gamliel is of the opinion who holds that the hodah doesn't have to be minatana. We saw that shita, but we don't pass in that way. But again, if the hodah, the admission, does not mirror any element of the claim, then lemaisa again it's not shos mode mikzas. So we'll watch this. Aval Amarlo. So we'll say this is the flip side of the brisa. I say to Reuven, you owe me a core of wheat. And Reuven says, I don't owe you a core, but rather I owe you a lesech. Lesech is a smaller amount than what? Chayev. And we'll say, what is that called? That's called mod mikzas, partial admission, or minoras bas eser litrin yesh leviyadecha. Or I say, Reuven, you owe me a menorah that is worth 10 litrin, which I will say is a measure of gold or a measure of silver. Yesh lecha biyadecha. And he says, no, I only owe you a menorah that has a weight of 5 litrin. Then Abba says that's also called mod mikzas and he's chayiv. So the Gemara says, klalo shel davar li'olam eno chayiv ad sheyitanenu b'davar shebemidah v'shebemishkal v'shebeminyan. I will say, therefore, again, the klal is that a shul mod mikzas can only be triggered when the claim is measurable. When the claim is a measurable claim. Through midah, mishkal, and minyan, through measurement, through weight, or through number, v'yodelo b'davar shebemidah v'shebemishkal v'shebeminyan. And ultimately, again, and furthermore, again, the admission, Rabbosai, is also with something that can be measured, that is quantifiable through midah, mishkal, and minyan. It says the Gemara, klalo shel davar la'asuyeh mai. And I will say, whenever you have a statement like that, a klalo shel davar, the general principle, that statement usually comes to include something additional as well. What is that coming to include over here? My lav la'asuyeh bayis zeh mole. We'll say, Bepashtos, it seems to come to include what, we'll say? The case of where I say, this home was full. That seems to be a specific enough statement to what, we'll say? To go ahead and trigger a Shevuos mod b'mikzas. But if that's the case, umayshna menorah gidola umenorah kitana. So we'll say, listen to this. Why is it that so what's different about the case of menorah gidola and menorah kitana? So let's remember again, in the first part of the brisa, the Gemara said that if I say to Reuven, I deposited with you a menorah gidola, a large menorah, and Reuven says, no, you only gave me menorah kitana. We'll say, what's the halacha? The halacha is he's pater. He's pater. I will say, why is he pater? So the Gemara says, because mashetano lo hodalo, umashodalo lo tano. Because I will say, that which I claimed is not what Reuven admitted, and that which Reuven admitted is not what I claimed. In other words, we'll say, I'm claiming an object that is A, and Reuven is admitting an object that is B. So therefore, the claim does not in any, the admission does not in any way mirror the claim. So it says the Gemara, I don't understand. Ihachi bas eser bas chamesh nami mashatano lahodolo umashahodolo lotano. Many of you were probably thinking this when we read the second part of the brisa. It was said when I claimed from Reuven, you owe me. I deposited with you a menorah that was 10 litrin. And what does Reuven say? or he deposited with me a menorah that was 5 litrin. So we'll say, so just to give the equivalent, Ruvain, I went ahead and I deposited with you a 20-pound menorah. And what does Ruvain say? You gave me a 10-pound menorah. So we'll say, I don't understand. Why? And yet, what did the Brisa say? Right, chayiv. He's chayiv shomon this. Why? Why? In other words, why is that not like the case of menorah gedola, menorah kitana? We'll say again, a 10-pound menorah is not a 20-pound menorah. It's two different entities. As such, again, why don't I say that in this case also that which was admitted does not mirror the claim? Rabbi Shmuel Silber, hacha b'menorah shel chulios askiran. This is interesting. To which the Gemara Rabbi Yitzchak says, what are we talking about? We're talking about a menorah that is made up of independent pieces. Which means, Rabbi say that the menorah you could screw on extra pieces to it. So the modele mine, because Rabbi say essentially, when I claim a menorah that's eser litrin, really what I'm saying is that eser litrin is made up of multiple independent pieces that are screwed on or that are attached to the menorah. When Reuven admits that he owes a 10-pound menorah, so we'll say what he's essentially arguing is what? The number of attached appendages. But Lamaisa, the entity is the same. Meaning the menorah itself is the same, it's just the shayla of I say there's whatever there's 10 pieces to it, and Reuven's admitting that there's 5 pieces to it. But the nature, but shachuyos means is, by definition, it's a type of menorah that can have pieces attached and detached for it. As such, the admission in fact mirrors the claim. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, so why don't we say the same thing by the belt? Or as remember again, what was the case of the belt? I claim to Reuven, I say, Reuven, you owe me. What was the case? What was the lashon over here? Right? Azura Gedola, right? I claim, Reuven, you owe me a large belt. And what does Reuven say? You owe me a small belt. Oh, excuse me, I only have a small belt. So also remember again, the Brisa said, I'm potter. Why? Why don't we just say, what's the case, Rabbi say? Why don't we say that it's a case of an adjustable belt, right? Rashi says over here, Bidalaifi, Rashi says, Azura nami listening, Azura bas esra amos yishli biyadecha, v'alo omer ein lecha biyadi ela bas chamesh, chayiv v'lokma ba'azura bas chatichos harbe, v'laifi adadi b'tiras macha. So we'll say, why don't I say that when it comes to a belt, we're talking about an adjustable belt that can be adjusted ultimately again through sewing, through needle and thread. So we'll say, so why don't I go ahead and say that's the kind of item that we're talking about over here. And make it in other words, if I'm going to deal with a menorah shel chulios, if I'm going to go ahead and deal with a menorah made up of disparate parts, why don't I go ahead and say that I'm talking about an adjustable belt? And say that again, when I claim a large belt and Reuven admits a small belt, we are talking about really the same type of entity, just the shayla of was it stitched up, was it not stitched up, the pieces in, the pieces out, to which the Gemara says, Ella, b'delaifi lo katani. Obviously, we're not talking about that kind of case. Hach nami b'shal chuyos lo katani. But I will say, one second, if we're not talking about that kind of belt, then we also what? Can't be talking about that type of menorah. In other words, I will say, you can't have it both ways. If it's a menorah shel chulios, then it has to be essentially a belt shel chulios as well. And if it's not a belt shel chulios, then it's not a menorah shel chulios. So what is the case? What's the case of Osai? So just understand what we're trying to do. All we're trying to figure out is as follows. We have two cases. Case number one, which in Brisa part 1, was I claim, Reuven, I deposited with you a large menorah. Reuven says, you gave me a small menorah. What's the halacha? Potter, no Shevuos. Why Rabbi say? Because we say that which Reuven is admitting is not that which I am claiming. I am claiming an entity that is called a large menorah. He is admitting a different entity called a small menorah. Therefore, the hodah is not mimin hataina, and therefore no shua. Yet, in the second part of the Brisa, what's the halacha? I claim a 20-pound menorah, and Reuven admits to a 10-pound menorah. That is the shua moed mitzvahs. I don't understand. Isn't a 10-pound menorah and a 20-pound menorah two different entities as well? Isn't that the same thing as menorah gadol, menorah katan? So what's the pshat? Let's listen to this. Shiny menorah, hoil v'yachal legorera v'la'amida chamesh litrin. So also here's the distinction. The distinction ultimately again is that when the machlokis is about the weight of the menorah, they can be talking about the same menorah. How so I will say? Because if I deposited with Reuven a 20-pound menorah, what could Reuven do? Reuven could chisel off some of the gold, some of the silver. So it could be the same menorah, but through chiseling of the menorah, I could diminish the weight. So I will say, as opposed to menorah gadol, menorah katan, I will say, which are two distinct entities. So because ultimately, again, when the disagreement is about the weight, so mamish, they could be disagreeing in the same object. Just, I gave it to Reuven in one state, and Reuven chiseled it down afterwards. So therefore, again, that's the shul modim miktsas, as opposed to menorah gadol, menorah katan, which Shabbos say the Gemara understands to be two fundamentally different and distinct types of objects. Good, beautiful. Says the Mishnah. We'll say Mishnah bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Hamalves Chaver Al Mashkan. Listen, we'll say these are fascinating cases. I lend Reuven money with a mashkan, with collateral. So we'll say, remember what that looks like. I give Reuven $1,000. He gives me an object as collateral. Okay. So va'ava the mashkan. Oh, we'll say what happens. This, get ready, refill your coffee right now. Right? We'll say, listen to this. What happens now? He loses the mashkan, right? So Reuven goes ahead. Reuven loses the collateral. So we'll say now the shaila is, what does loss of collateral do to the ability of the lender to collect? So va'ava the mashkan. So we'll say now watch this. Now here's where it gets interesting. Here's what we'll say. So you know where this is going, right? So where is this going? Now the dispute is going to be about, we'll say, the value of the mashka. The value of the mashka. So watch this. Amar lo, selehil visicha, v'shek ahaya shava. So I say, Reuven, listen, Reuven, I lent you $1,000, but the mashka was only worth $100, right? We'll say, in other words, so collateral isn't automatically, see, in the paradigmatic case of collateral, I lend Reuven money, and I collateralize an object that is the value of the debt. It secures my ability to collect. And the way it normally works is, if I don't collect my money, let's say I borrow money from the bank. The bank places a lien in my home. My home is collateralized for the bank. So the bank wants the cash. If I don't give them the cash, they're going to take my house. So the Maisa again says the Gemara, that's the paradigmatic case of collateral. But again, it's not always like that. Sometimes a person would just rather have some object that is of value, even if it's not for the full value of the loan. So I say, Reuben, I lent you $1,000. I'm the lender. I lent you $1,000, but the collateral itself was only worth $500. It was only worth $500. So on the other hand, it always says, no, you lent me $1,000, and what? The collateral was worth $1,000. We're done here. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Pater. I will say ultimately again, when we say pater, what pater means is there's no shvua that's necessary in this particular case. Right? Because we're both saying, remember, we're still in the sugya modim mixas. There's no modim mixas over here because Reuben is not admitting that he owes the lender anything. On the other hand, I say, Reuben, I lent you $1,000, but the collateral was worth $500. And what happens? So we'll say, listen to this. On the other hand, let's say Reuven says, I say, Reuven, I lent you $1,000, but the mashkon is worth $500. Reuven says, no, you lent me $1,000, but the mashkon is worth $700. So I'll say, in that case, what do we have? We essentially have a shur modim miktsas, and ultimately, again, Reuven will have to swear to the value of the collateral. So we'll say, listen to this. So now we'll say, this is a fascinating case. Reuven, the borrower says, listen, Silber, you lent me $1,000, but you know the collateral was worth $2,000. So now you lost the collateral. Now you owe me, you lender owe me borrower $1,000. I say no, that's not true. I lent you $1,000. The collateral was worth $1,000. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Pater. We'll say, this is just the flip. This is just the flip case. In the flip case, again, it was the lender making the claim. Here it is the borrower who is making the claim. On the other hand, so we'll say, again, Reuven says, Silber, you lent me $1,000, but the mashkon is worth $2,000. And what happens? And I say, no, not true. I lent you $1,000, but the mashkon ultimately, again, was worth $1,500. So we'll say, in that case, again, there's a shumo de mixas, and I have to swear. Now we'll say, the Mishnah ends off, umin yishpa. By the way, who swears in this case? Who is it that's swearing? So we'll say, we're going to qualify this statement just a little bit. Misha hapi kadon etzler. We'll say, this is a riveting statement. You know who swears in these cases, we'll say? He who is in or was in possession of the collateral. Why? Shema yishaveh, out of concern that maybe the other party, i.e. the borrower, will swear, because also remember it is the malved, his lender has the collateral. We're concerned that maybe the borrower will swear, and it'll turn out that's what? It'll turn out that the lender in fact was in possession of the collateral. We'll take out the collateral, we'll produce the collateral after the oath has been taken. what's happening over here. Take a look at Rashi. Misha pikadon etzla. So we'll say first of all, mi nishba kama ha'isashava. Who swears about the value of the pikadon? Misha pikadon etzlo. He who is in possession of the pikadon. Says Rashi hamalve. Ultimately, again, it is the lender. What are we concerned about? V'yotzi hala sapikadon. V'shema lo diktek ze b'shuma. V'yifselenu le'edus l'shvua. So we'll say, what are we concerned about? We're concerned that if the lender, in fact, does have the pikadon, and let's say he's lying, and now what ends up happening? The loveh goes ahead and takes a shvua. Now, it could be that he's mistaken about the value of the collateral just by mistake. And then what's going to happen? He's going to take a shvua. The malva then is going to say, tada, is going to produce the pikadon afterwards, and ultimately he's going to make the loveh into a liar, going to passel him for edus, going to passel him for a shvua. In other words, we'll say, essentially we're going to see what the Mishnah is saying over here is, when one person was in possession of the object, he has the onus of the shvua. The onus of the shvua rests upon him, and then what that does is, that avoids any possibility that maybe, or not any possibility, it minimizes the possibility that maybe he does have the item with him and he's just lying. With the hope that if we impose the shvua upon him, he who has the object, that'll root out any possibility that he is lying. We're going to define this. We'll say, says the Gemara. Ahaya. So we'll say, ask the Gemara, specifically that last statement of who swears. So we'll say, what case is that going on? So ilay ma'aseifa, if you want to say something about the latter part of the Mishnah, the seifuk lay the shua gabi malveh. And we're going ahead and we're learning it out. So again, it's easy enough. In the last case, Rabbi say, it's obvious that the malveh, that the lender is making the shua. Because we'll remember again, in the second part of the Mishnah, what was happening? That was where again it is the borrower who's making the claim. And the borrower is claiming that ultimately again the pikadon was worth more than the value of the debt, and it is the malveh, it is the lender who is quote unquote modeh b'mikzas. So of course he's gonna have to take the shvua in that case. Amar Shmuel, therefore Shmuel says areisha. In fact, again, I will say that last statement of the Mishnah is going on the first part of the that last statement in the Mishnah is going on the first part of the Mishnah. V'chinim Rabbi Barav areisha, v'chinim Rabbi Yochanan areisha. My Reisha. Also, when we say Reisha, what Reisha is going on? Reisha de Seifa. Or I should say, the Gemara says, my Reisha, Seifa de Reisha, excuse me. It's talking about the Seifa of the first part of the Mishnah. We'll say, what's the case? Selihil v'sichalav. So we'll say, I go ahead and I say to Ruvain, I lent you $1,000, v'shekel hayashava. But the mashkron was only worth 500. V'ala omerlo. Ki ela selihil v'sani. Yes, I admit that you owed me $1,000. Ushlosha dinarim hayashava. But lamaisa again. I'm sorry. I say to Ruvain, selihil v'sichalav. I lent you $1,000, a shekel hayashava, and ultimately again the mashkon was worth $500. And Ruvain says, you lent me $1,000, and the mashkon was worth $700. So we'll say, what's talacha? Chayiv. The shvua gabi lovehi. So we'll say, so what happens? On a technical level, what do we call that? We call that modeh b'mikzas. So we'll say, ultimately again, so what happens in modeh b'mikzas? Who should have to swear in that case? We'll say, the loveh should have to swear. The borrower should have to swear in that case. But we'll say, yeah, what does the Mishnah teach me? V'shaklua rabbanon miloveh v'shadjuha amalveh. But we'll say, Chazal do something very interesting. In that case, they take the shvua off the malveh. They take the shvua off the loveh, off the borrower, and they place it on the malveh. Why, Rabbi say? Because out of concern that since we're talking about an object which was in the possession of the malveh, we're concerned that what could happen, maybe the malveh really does have the object in his possession, he's just lying, in order to go ahead, and he's going to produce it after the loveh swears. So in order to avoid any unnecessary complications for the loveh, we take the shvua off the shoulders of the loveh, because the loveh is really the one who's modeh b'mikzas. So we take the shvua off his shoulders, and we place it upon the shoulders of the malveh. V'hashta da'amar Ravashi, the kaimalon, zen nishba shteina b'shruso, v'zen nishba kama shava, hachi kamer. Now we'll say, now that we have the shita of Ravashi, then we'll say that we will discuss. We actually saw this in Bab Mitzvah, but we're going to discuss it more in just a little bit. I'll say Rashi holds that Lemaisa, again, when it comes to Pikadon, both of them have to take a Shvuah. I will say, right, so the Malva, the lender, has to take a Shvuah that what? That the object is not in his possession, and the Lova has to take a Shvuah that says what? I will say, how much the object was actually worth. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says, actually, by the way, not just by loan. Rav Ashi's statement is actually, I will say, by a shomer sachar. Right? By a shomer sachar, who makes the claim that the object was stolen. The object was taken or it was stolen. Ultimately, again, he has to take a shvuah that the object is no longer in his possession, and the owner of the object has to swear about the value of the object itself. So we'll say, so therefore, again, hachi kamar. This is what the Mishnah teaches me. Mi nishpat tchila. So we'll say, watch this. So what the Gemara just to understand the progression over here. So in the case where I say Ruvain, I lent you $1,000. The pikadon was worth $500. Right? Ruvain says you lent me $1,000. The pikadon was worth $700. We'll say that's a technical case of moed b'miktzas, and therefore what? The loveh should have to swear. Now the Gemara is teaching me that what Chazal did was they took the shvuah from the loveh and they put it onto the malveh. Now the Gemara says, but by the way, now that we accept the shita of Rav Ashi, what does Rav Ashi say? That essentially whenever you deposit an object with someone and that object is lost, both parties have to take a shvuah. The party who was watching the object has to swear that he doesn't have the object, and the owner of the object swears to what? The value of the object. Now that we accept that premise, what is the Mishnah coming to teach me? Hachi kamar, mi nishbat tchila. We'll see who swears first. Who swears first? To which the Gemara answers, mi shapikadon etzlo. The one who is in possession of the object swears first. So we'll say, so for our purposes, who does that refer to? That refers to the malva, to the lender. And he has to swear first. Mi shapikadon etzlo. Why? Shema yishpazeh v'yotzi ala sapikadon. We'll say, out of concern that if we make the loveh, the borrower swear first, maybe he will swear first, and what's going to happen? The malva will produce the object afterwards. So essentially, in order to avoid any type of situation where the malva is lying and is really still in possession of the object, because both of them, I will say, at least according now that we accept the terms of Rav Ashi, are going to have to take a shvuah, we make the malva take his shvuah first, and the lova take his shvuah afterwards. Amr Shmuel. Hayman de osfe alpha zuzah the chaver. Well, so listen to this case. This is actually quite interesting. If someone goes ahead and lends money to his friend, so we'll say, I lend $1,000 to Ruven. And what happens? Umashkun leikata demaglo. And I will say, what does Ruven give me as collateral? He gives me again an axe handle. An axe handle. And I will say, this is not an axe handle made of like some unique species of wood that's worth $1,000. It's mamish kishmo kinu. Home Depot axe handle. He gives me again the axe handle as collateral. So we'll say, what's talacha? This is actually quite amazing. Avad kata de magla, avad ilfa zuze. We'll say, if I, the lender, lose the axe handle, I lost my money. In other words, we'll say that axe handle is considered to be a full collateral for the loan, and therefore, if I lose the axe handle, I've lost my ability to collect the loan. Rashi says, avad alfa zuzi. Rashi says over here, the savar v'kabil, both sides, because the assumption the Gemara is working with over here is as follows: that under normal circumstances, when I receive collateral, essentially, what am I doing? I'm accepting that collateral as the full value of the debt, independent as to what the actual value of that object is. I accept that collateral as full value of the debt. So if I lend Ruven $1,000 and he gives me an axe handle, the axe handle is worth $20. But by accepting that as collateral, I accept that axe handle as the full value of the debt. Therefore, if I lose the axe handle, I no longer have any ability to collect. So again, Rashi says the savar v'kabil, that's the operative phrase. The savar v'kabil. I've accepted upon myself the value of this axe handle as full collateral for the debt. So we'll say, now again, obviously Rashi just points out over here, if the axe handle is still in existence, so of course, again, I do not agree to accept that axe handle in lieu of payment for my debt, so I still want to get repaid for the debt. It's just only in the dramatic case where I lose the collateral, where ultimately I no longer have any recourse for collection of the debt. So the Gemara says, Avar akata demagla avar alpha zuze. Aval tarti kasoi lo. Well, this is very interesting. But let's say again, Ruven gave me two axe handles. So let's say for 2x handles, halacha wouldn't apply. Now what does it mean? Take a look at Rashi. Aval tarti kasa lo amrinan chad kaba b'chamish mea v'chad b'chamish mea v'avet chad b'minaya lo lifsid chamish mea dehalo parish chad b'palga v'chad b'palga ela tarvayu kablinhu b'chad b'mashkono v'lo b'piron v'chevan detihadle mixas mashkono may dechaser nafshe minei pater shloshim mishavos. Listen to this. Let's say I lend Reuven $1,000 and he gives me 2 axe handles. So we'll say we don't say that one axe handle represents $500 and the other axe handle represents $500. Rather, what? Both collectively are considered to be the mashkon. Therefore, what we'll say, as long as some part of the mashkon is still in existence, when the debt becomes due, what happens? I give back the remaining axe handle, and I get back my money, and I pay him the value of the lost axe handle. For Rav Nachman says no. Afilu tarti kasasi. Even 2 axe handles. Avad chada, avad chamishmiya, avad idach, avad kule. We'll say even 2 axe handles. We'll say so. Comes along Rav Nachman and says no. That when I get 2 axe handles, each axe handle represents half of the debt. Therefore, again, if I lose an axe handle, I've lost $500. If I lose the other axe handle, I lose the other $500. Aval. We'll say listen to this. Aval kata v'naska lo. We'll say, watch this. However, so we'll say, here's what we have so far. We have a machlokus between Shmuel and Rav Nachman. What Shmuel we'll say says is a dramatic statement, which again we're going to have to further clarify, which is what? I lend Reuven $1,000, he gives me an axe head. So we'll say, the way Shmuel understands the nature of collateral is that collateral is accepted in potential lieu of repayment of the debt. Therefore, again, there were what Shmuel calls savir v'kabil. I accept this object as the full value of the debt. Therefore, what according to Shmuel, if I lose that axe handle, we'll say, what happens? What happens? I lost my ability to collect the debt. However, if Reuven gave me 2 axe handles, or I accept 2 axe handles, we do not go ahead and say 2 axe handles. Each axe handle corresponds to $500 of the debt. That we do not say. That we do not say. Rather what? Rather, again, we say 2 collectively represent the collateralized unit. Therefore, if I lost one, I go back, I collect my money from Reuven, and I pay him the value of the lost axe handle. Rav Nachman comes along and says, no. When there are 2, we view 2 as 500 and 500. Therefore, you lose one, you lost the ability to collect half of the debt, and you can collect the remaining part of the debt. However, I'll also listen to this, and with this we'll stop. Aval kasa v'naska lo. I'll also listen to this case. What happens if Reuven gives me 2 items as collateral? A kata, which is again an axe handle, and naska. They both say naska ultimately means a piece of silver. A piece of silver. First of all, take a look at Rashi just a moment. Aval kata v'naska lo amrina naska kabel b'palga decheva demiti dechaz leperonhu lo kabli ale ela b'demei shavyav. So let's listen to this. So when it comes to if let's say Reuven, I lend Reuven $1,000, he gives me a piece of silver and an axe handle. So we'll say in this case over here, we do not say that half of the debt is linked to the axe handle and half of the debt is linked to the silver. Why not? Because ultimately, again, we'll say since the silver is a real item of value, therefore, again, we look at it different. Because he gives me silver, what he's clearly giving me is an item of value. Therefore, again, the silver corresponds to its value. Let me say it differently. The value of the silver corresponds to the same value of the debt itself. Therefore, again, avad naska, avad palga. I'm sorry, I just lost the place. Avakata v'naska lo. So therefore, again, I will say this is in Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman comes along and says, when do I say that ultimately, again, if you have 2 objects, each corresponds to 50% of the debt? That's when what? The objects that are being given are really don't correspond to the value of the debt at all. But it's axe handles. So if Rav Nachman will say 2 axe handles means 1 for 500, 1 for 500. But when Reuven is going out of his way to what? Give me items for collateral that I will say what? Have their own inherent value. Then what he's doing is he is directly linking the value of the collateral to the value of the debt. Or we'll stop over here by the sheet of the Nardoim. We'll stop over here again. We'll continue with a small daf tomorrow, so we can stop over here. So I will say, so just understand where we're leaving off of. We're leaving off in the middle of trying to figure out what the relationship between collateral and the actual debt itself. So far now we see